Fulfillment Fridays. I'm Alisa, and this is our very first episode of Fulfillment Fridays. I'm Alisa, and I am the founder of Fulfillment Empowerment Network. So if you have not liked our page, you want to go ahead and do that because you are getting ready to be blessed, and I am getting ready to add value to you and what you do, and I don't want you to miss one moment of it. So join me every Friday for Fulfillment Fridays. You'll find it right there on on my business page, Fulfillment Empowerment Network. And you can also find this video on YouTube or Instagram, wherever it is that you socialize. I will be posting this video if you want to catch it again later. So today we're going to talk about the law of intentionality. As you know, I am a certified coach, speaker, trainer with the John Maxwell team, and much of what I teach and my basis and my growth as an individual comes from and is summarized in most of John Maxwell's teaching. And you know, John Maxwell is world renowned for leadership. He is the #1 leadership guru in the world. And I am just so thrilled that I'm a part of his teaching and his mentorship and what he provides and what he offers to the world. Simply just adding value. So let's dig right into the law of intentionality. So before we start that and we talk about some of these growth gaps, I have a question for you. Do you have a growth plan? Do you have a growth plan? You know, the law of intentionality states that growth does not just happen. Let that sink in. Growth does not just happen. If you're going to grow, if you're going to become better at what you do, and if you're just going to become better at who you are, you're going to have a plan of intention to do so. You're going to have a plan and a roadmap to get on track with where you would like to be. How many of us made a plan or set aside a list of things that we want to achieve by the end of the year? And of course, COVID came and probably knocked out some of your plans. But did you just write that list without a plan, without an intention, without direct steps on how you were going to achieve it? If you're like me, you probably did. That's some of the things that I had to call myself out on to get where I wanted to be, to get where I want to be. Because believe it, growth does not just happen. It doesn't just stop. It's still ending. It's a process. So I'm inviting you today to join me on the journey of growing in your relationships, growing as an individual, growing as a leader. Let's talk about leadership really quick before we dive into the law of intentionality. And this is what I'm going to ask you. Are you a leader? And if you don't think you are, why not? You know, John says that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I believe from all the business classes that I have attended and I have done at universities and studied it and even try to write my own definition, when I saw what John Maxwell said leadership is, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Leadership is influence. And that's why no matter where you are and what you're doing, you are a leader. Just think about it for a minute. Do you have influence? Do you have influence on a child's life? Do you have influence in your workplace? Whether or not you have a title, you know, my little plaque back there says girl boss. Hey, I am a boss. That's what I tell myself. And it's not because I have people following me. No, it's because I realize that everything starts and begins with me. As John Maxwell also says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And so we all have influence. No matter where we are and what we do, we are influencing people. So you are a leader. And that is exactly why you should have a growth plan. So let's go down into the law of intentionality. The law of intentionality, as I stated earlier, says growth does not just happen. Growth does not just happen. And we find that there are roadblocks and what John Maxwell describes as gaps. So let's talk about the growth gap of assumption. So many people assume that if they hang out with the right crowd, if they go to the right study group, or they go to the right college and they get the right degree and they apply for the right job, that they're going to grow. No, that is an assumption, and you're actually giving the chances of you actually growing to circumstance. You have to be intentional. So let's stop assuming that we're going to grow, and let's put intention behind it. How are we going to grow? What are we going to do? So let's talk about the next growth gap, the next trap that we find ourselves in. And that is the trap that says, oh, Alisa, I don't really know how to grow. What do you mean? What are you talking about growing? Girl, do you know how hard it is to do what I do, to be a mom, a dad? You have to make this money and then all the other chores and get this one to soccer practice or all the things that we do. I don't know how to do that. I don't know. And that takes you right into the gap of the gap and the trap of timing. It's just not the right time. You know, I figured once I finish this degree, once the kids are off to college, or, you know, once I get a new job, that'll be the right time for me to really dig in and get into something, like a mastermind or some type of personal, the timing, right? These are excuses and traps that we fall into and give ourselves the disadvantage of intentionally growing. And then there's the fourth mistake gap that we tend to make, and that is, I'm just afraid of making a mistake. What if I don't do this right? What if it's not, you talked about it's not the right time, but what if I just, mess it all up? I don't know where to start. I don't think it's the right time, and I don't want to make a mistake, Just remember that growing is not always a clean and neat pursuit. It's not something that you can just come up to and know exactly how to do it. So let's avoid the mistake gap, and that is the one where we're afraid to make mistakes. In the John Maxwell team, we have a saying that says jump and grow your wings on your way down. And I am telling you, it's the best little line or quote or motivation I've gotten for this year, and I really do take it on. I really do take it on. So I encourage you to go ahead and do it. Don't worry about making a mistake. The perfection gap. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you guys, this is one of my biggest traps. This has been my struggle, not just today, my entire life. The perfection gap. If you're a perfectionist, raise your hand. If you're a recovering perfectionist, raise your hand. So that's me. I call myself the recovering perfectionist. I think I want things to be right. I want things to be a certain way. I want presentation to be aesthetically appealing. So that is also another trap to keep us and limit us from growing. You have to remember, while the mistake gap and the timing gap says, I'm afraid and I don't want to make that move, the perfection gap says, I will move only if I have a perfect plan and I know exactly how it's going to turn out. Well, excuse me, ma'am. You cannot have all that control and grow. I'm sorry. I'm not saying this just to you. This is what I have to say to myself. I'm going to have to, like I said in my last statement, where in our John Maxwell team, we say, jump and grow your wings on the way down. So let go of perfection. Get out of the trap of perfection. Yes. So the next growth gap and the growth trap, I like that kind of rhymes a little bit, is the inspiration gap. And that one says, I don't feel like doing it. I just don't. I don't have the motivation. Well, it's just not the right time. You know what? I'm too old. I'll leave that for you young ones. Listen, if you're going to get yourself out of this inspiration gap, you're going to have to make it's one of two decisions. It's either you are or you're not going to. And it's up to you. It's up to you. And I'll tell you what, we have so many excuses. I mean, I know, like when I looked after the first 3 months of COVID, I was like, whoa, my little tummy, I was starting to get a little pouch again. And I say again, and I'm still working on it, but I had to hold myself accountable and say, Alisa, the reason you have a little extra tummy is not because of COVID. It's because you are not taking the action and doing what you're supposed to do to maintain your weight. And so that is something that is either you are or you're not. Inspiration does not just fall out of the sky. You don't go to church or don't go to a nice conference and sit there, and because you're in the right crowd, the right people, you get inspired. Well, you will. But that little dust, fairy dust, will only last almost as long as you're in the company of the people or the one that's sharing and inspiring you. You have to inspire yourself and skip out on inspiration. It's either you are or you're not. And so that's a message for all of us, right? The inspiration gap. Now here's another one. Now, believe it or not, many of us don't want to admit that we suffer with this. But believe me, we all do. I know I do. And this gap is called the comparison gap. Well, you just know, others can do it better than me. Why don't you pick her? She can do it better than me. Your boss or your supervisor said, Alisa, tomorrow's meeting, I want you to lead on the call. And you're like, why you picked me? Jenny does it better than me? Two truths about others. They're always going to be someone that's better than you. And rejoice for the ones that are. For you will learn from those out in front of you. So when you're learning, you want to do. So let's talk about the comparison gap. Others can do it better than I can. Others are better than I am. We all, in one form or the other, have suffered with this gap, and some of us still are. And it sneaks up, so it's not always that obvious. Oh, who does she think she is? She thinks she's better than me. Who does he think he is? He thinks he's better than me. It's that quiet voice in the back of your head that's saying, well, why are they going to pick me? I'm not the best one for the job. They could pick, Tanya. Your boss says, hey, Alisa, I want you to lead tomorrow's meeting. I want you to lead tomorrow's call with the rest of the staff. And you're like, me? You picked me? Why didn't you pick Jenny? Because she's way better at all that leadership talk stuff than I am. Yeah, that's that comparison gap. And so you want to check yourself before you wreck yourself with this one, because it sneaks up in the back of your mind. Sometimes we're not even aware of it, but we get involved in that comparison gap. And then our 8th gap or trap in the law of intentionality is the gap of expectation. I thought it would be easier than this. It's not supposed to be this hard. Woe is me. Listen, you want to know how I know that's so good? Because that's one of my big time gaps, by the time I was 40, I was supposed to accomplish this. I was supposed to be able to do this. Listen, lay out this paradigm. Life does not work, and function on luck. So there's no way that it was supposed to be. Every decision that you have made in your life so far has brought you to this exact moment that you are. So whether you have what you thought you would or not, you're here for a reason. So go ahead and let's own that and let go. I call it the sorry for me gap, where you just hold in endless pity parties. The law of expectation. Well, if my ex would have, and if I didn't have kids that early, or if my parents paid for a college education, and if my dad was not a drunk, or whatever it is that you saying that could have been, that should have been, that isn't and it hasn't been. You had all these expectations, but things didn't go the way you planned. So that becomes a little safe haven, a comfort zone for your excuses to cheat yourself out of growing and becoming. So there you have it, friends. The law of intentionality. Today, my challenge is for you. And I'm telling you, I am just giving you the brief, short version of the law of intentionality. Of course, in one of our masterminds or study groups, you can delve in with me and some other fabulous folks with going through these laws and actually looking and challenging ourselves to grow. And you get to work through it with the group of people that are like-minded. But until then, I want to encourage you that if you can take this video and you can really take a look at the gaps and the law of intentionality, and you can challenge yourself to be intentional. A few weeks ago I posted on my Facebook page about being intentional in this time, in this season of so many global crises. It's not just COVID-19. We've got economic crises, we've got racial crises, and we've got leadership crises. There are many, right? And I was talking about how we have to be intentional, not just about growth, or as we are intentional about growing and becoming what we are, what we were created for, and living a life of purpose and fulfillment. Those words, we hear them a lot, but for me, they have very deep meaning. And I know for you it does too. And I know that purpose for you looks different from what purpose is for me, but the value of it is the same. And fulfillment for me may look different than fulfillment for you, but the value from one human to the next is the same, right? So what I'm saying to you is you have to be intentional. And like I was saying on my Facebook page, I challenged my friends and my followers to be intentional about what you do in this season, during these crises. Be intentional about who you let in your circle, what you listen to, what you talk about, what you put inside of your head, because that seeps down in your heart, and then that becomes what you think, and then that becomes who you are. Oof, that's a lot. Trust me. I had to challenge myself too. And so I'm not telling you to become paranoid and just push people away, but maybe you have to. Maybe there's some conversations and some groups, Facebook groups, or talks that you get involved in that's just not good. It's sabotaging your growth. It's either killing your expectation, or causing you to be in a state of comparison, or causing you to question timing because you think, oh, it's COVID. Let me tell you, you've got to be intentional. You've got to be intentional about where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, who you're going to go there with, in order to live a life of purpose. So I challenge you, friend, take a little bit under your wings today with what I've added to you, to your little box, your little toolbox. That's my goal, is to give you little practical tools that you can really just put into your life right now, today, wherever you are, whatever you do, to be able to grow, change as a leader. Remember, leadership is influence, and we all have influence. Whether you know it or not, someone is watching and looking to you, and you're influencing people, whether consciously or subconsciously. So be intentional. You know what? Until then, until next Friday for Fulfillment Friday, if not before I get on here, I get a nugget and I just want to drop in. I want to say, live your life passionately on purpose. Passionately on purpose. Have a wonderful day. Go ahead, like our Facebook page. Visit my website at fulfillmentempowermentnetwork.com, or Alisa White, that's my full first and last name, ALISAWHYTE.com, and get more information. Join a mastermind group and let's learn and grow together. Until then, you have a wonderful day and have a fulfilled Friday. Bye-bye now.